All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to create the basic playground application. And what this is it's a simple application that'll host our examples as we move forward throughout this course. The reason we need it is because I'm going to be using modern JavaScript features that may or may not be available to the version of Node that we might be using or the browser we might be using. And so we need a build step that will transpile our modern JavaScript code into something that can run in Node and on the browser. Some of our examples are going to be ran on the command line using Node.js, and some of our examples are going to be served out with a simple HTTP server and ran on our web browsers. So I need something to take our JavaScript files and convert them into a way that can be processed both on Node and on the browser. I just want to take another second here and point out that this project skeleton is available as a downloadable asset. So if you don't care about any of the stuff or how any of the stuff works, you can go ahead, you can download it, and then in a video or two, I will show you guys how to get that up and running and how to use it. But for you guys who want to sit back and hang out and go over some cool features of Gulp and Babel and Browserify and all that fun stuff, well, you're more than welcome to stick around. I do want to reiterate, though, that I will be going kind of quickly through this. I know I'll say it again probably, but if you are not so comfortable with Node or Gulp or some of the JavaScript shorthand that I'm going to be using to get this out the door as quickly as possible, that's okay. Don't get scared off. Again, you can use the sample application provided in the assets to follow along for the reactive part of this course. So yeah, most of the stuff has, pretty practically all this stuff has already been covered in a previous course of mine, the using modern JavaScript today. So again, that's another reason why I'm not going to be reiterating everything. But we'll see some interesting use cases of how we can use things like Nodemon, Node Monitor, and in Gulp. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Remember, the goal of this is to allow us to serve out two environments. Allow us to serve out a command line environment where we can write little test applications right here in the command line, and a HTML environment where we can write examples against actual HTML elements and jQuery and all that fun stuff. So we're going to start off like we usually do with an npm init. Also, I intend this video to be very informal, and I reserve the right to make mistakes. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. The first thing we need to do is npm install. By the way, you will need Node, the latest version of Node and the latest version of npm installed to follow through with this. We're going to npm install, and we're going to install our build tools. So we're going to install the tools that are needed to transform our JavaScript into JavaScript that can be ran on the browser or on Node, because we're going to be using new features. And to do that, we're going to need, first of all, Gulp. So Gulp is our awesome task runner. So I'm going to do gulp.js/gulp hash 4.0. Unfortunately, Gulp 4 has not been released yet, so I have to install it directly from its GitHub repository, which is what that syntax means right there. So I'm installing this repository at this tag, or at this branch, rather. In addition, I'm going to grab Gulp load plugins. People from my past course would know how much I love that plugin. We're also going to grab Babel, Gulp-Babel, and we're also going to grab Babel preset ES 2015. Again, Babel is going to be our compiler that'll compile our code, and the preset ES 2015 is the plugin to that compiler that allows us to use modern JavaScript. We're also going to grab Browserify, Watchify, Babelify. So we're going to be using Browserify for our client-side package management. I'm also going to grab Gulp cached. We'll see why we need that in a moment here. And I'm also going to grab a package called Nodemon. Nodemon's really cool. It monitors a directory, and when any file in that directory changes, it runs a JavaScript file, and it'll terminate that file if it's still running. It's awesome for Node development, and we'll see how that plays into this momentarily. And of course, I'm going to have to grab a vinyl source stream to allow Browserify to work with Gulp. And I'm going to go ahead and save dev that out. I don't think I missed anything, but I could be wrong. But anyway, let that go ahead and install. So basically, we're going to be using the Gulp Babel plugin to compile our server-side code, and we're going to be using the Browserify package manager to compile our client-side code, of course with the Babelify plugin installed. So fun stuff. Also, you're going to need to make sure, again, Node and NPM need to be installed. They also need to be added to your path, so if things aren't working right after an install, make sure you restart your computer so your environment variables get updated. You're also going to need Gulp installed globally, at least a version of Gulp 4 installed globally, so we can use Gulp from the command line. And so this is taking a little bit of time, so I'll go ahead and pause. All right, so now that that's done, let's go ahead and install some runtime dependencies. I'm going to npm install jQuery, and I'm also going to npm install Lodash, moment, and color with a U. And I'm going to do save. Color is a cool little package. It allows us to change the color of our console output, and that's going to be handy for our examples when we are printing directly to the console in a Node environment. And of course, jQuery and Lodash and Moment as just ancillary libraries to play around with. Okay, so next up we're going to install Reactive Extensions as a client-side directory, or a server-side dependency and client-side dependency since we're using Browserify. And we're going to be using RxJS. RxJS is, I'll say that out, RxJS is version 5 of Reactive Extensions for JavaScript, and that's the version that this course covers. It's currently in beta, but it is pretty stable, and I haven't had any issues with it, and I recommend that new projects use it. Angular 2, for example, has a dependency on RxJS version 5. Right now we're on beta 2, but you future people might have newer versions. So if I open up my package.json, you'll see all of my dependencies and dev dependencies and the versions of each one that I installed. All right, let's do our server-side stuff first. So I'm going to create a directory structure that's going to contain src-server, and I'm also going to create a folder called build. So src server is where our examples are going to go that are going to be executed against Node, and build is where the built versions of those are. And for src server, let's create a new file. Let's call it example0, or how about example_00.js. And for this, I'm simply going to say import rx from. Well, how about just import moment from moment, and then console log moment dot format. So once this, I'm just throwing this code out there so we can watch this as it compiles, if it compiles, while we put together our build step. So let's put together a build step. I'm going to create a gulp file.js, and this file again just describes the different things that our gulp installation can do. And I'm going to go ahead and say var gulp equals require gulp, usually the first thing. Second thing, let's load our plugins. Require gulp load plugins. Now this require statement will import a function, so we need to make sure to execute it. So those two those empty parentheses is not a syntax error. That is what you need to do. Let's bring in source. So require vinyl source stream. I keep on missing the R. Is my R key going out? Browserify equals require browserify. Watchify equals require watchify. And babelify equals require babelify. Now let's go ahead and create our build server scripts task. So I'm going to simply say gulp.task, and let's just do scripts :server. And for this task, we're simply going to do this. We're going to say return gulp source on source server, and then do a glob that matches all JavaScript files. And we're going to pipe that straight in to money.babel. So the Gulp Babel plugin is what I'm referencing right there. Remember, Gulp load plugins and loads in all the packages that start with Gulp dash and stuffs them all into money, so we can easily reference them. And then after we do that, we'll go ahead and just pipe Gulp dest. And the destination is, of course, going to be build. So that's our script server. Let's go ahead and make a watch task. So gulp task watch server or watch scripts server. And for this, we're simply going to return gulp watch on source server anything.js. And the task we're going to run is gulp.series scripts server. So now if I come over here, I'll go ahead and collapse that and move this off the side so you can look at that code while I'm doing this. If I do gulp scripts server, give it a sec, it executed. So if you want to pause the video right there, you can. Otherwise, I'm going to pop this open up build, and check that out. We did not get a transformation, but it did compile. The reason we didn't get a transformation is we need a babel RC. We need to tell Babel what kind of transformations we want to use. So I'm going to create a new file. It's going to be .babel RC, and for this, I'm going to open up an object, I don't care. With presets, it's simply going to be an array of ES 2015. Now I'll run gulp script server again. And look, it took longer. Jump into example 00 and check that out. It properly converted our ES 2015 code into ES 5 code. All right, now let's test our watch task. So I'm going to go ahead and open up on my left-hand side our uncompiled code, and on the right-hand side our compiled code. And let's see if it changes while I manipulate it. So let's say gulp watch server and see what happens. And no task available. Did I not save my gulp file? No. It's saved. Gulp watch scripts server. Dirt. Gulp watch scripts server. And that should start a watch task. So now if I add console log whoa into here and hit Control S, it immediately appears on the right-hand side for our compiled code. So that's our server. Now let's go ahead and do Nodemon. Now, Nodemon, again, I said it before, but it's basically a process that sits there and watches for changes. And when changes pop in, it restarts a node task. Now, I'm not going to do that as part of our gulp file. I'm actually going to do it as an out-of-process thing. So our gulp file will simply be responsible for building our scripts, and we'll open up another console window that runs our Nodemon. And to make it easier, see, because our Nodemon installation went into node modules bin Nodemon. That's the Nodemon process that we need to invoke. But every time I want to run Nodemon, I don't want to type in node modules bin Nodemon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a package.json script that aliases that out for me. So then I can simply just type in npm run Nodemon instead of typing in something else. So jumping into package.json, I'm going to come up here to my scripts, and I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to simply say Nodemon is Nodemon. So the script name is Nodemon, and the thing it's going to execute is Nodemon. Now the cool thing about scripts in package.json is that they already have that .bin directory imported into the path, so I don't have to specify the node modules bin. I also want to go ahead and say, pass in an argument. I want to say watch build. So Nodemon is only going to restart the process if any file within here changes. So let's go ahead and test that out. I'm going to open up another command line window, and I'm going to do gulp watch scripts server. We already know this works, so I'll move this off to the side while it compiles my stuff. And then on my left-hand side, I'm simply going to say npm run Nodemon, and I'm going to pass in build example 00. And check that out. Nodemon is running. And if I come in here to my source server and change any of this code and hit Control S, notice how it goes ahead and relaunches that. So this is how we're going to be able to do some really, really quick feedback loops in our example. So I can just come in here, say hello world, hit Control S, and we immediately see that that new output of that script got executed. So it's a very tight feedback loop, great for training and experimentation and exploration of different libraries. There is one thing I want to do though, because if I come in here and create a new file, and I'm just going to call it garbage.js, and in garbage.js I'll say console log whoa. Notice how every time I save garbage.js, I'm getting this this message that says restarting due to changes and then restarting due to changes. Notice how I changed one file, but Nodemon is registering that I changed 2 files. And why is that? Well, it's because the way we wrote, well, the way I wrote this Gulp file is that this script server is going to run every single file through Babel and re-execute it. And that's going to be a problem. And it's a problem because it triggers Nodemon multiple times. So how do we fix that? Well, I want to introduce a really straightforward, really awesome little Gulp utility, Gulp plugin called cached. So I'm going to say pipe money, oops, that's not how you spell money, dot cached, and I'm just going to do server. So cached, basically what it does is it says if we're still running, so if this was not a one-off thing, if we're still running, and we got a change notification, and we globbed in all these files, make sure that all of the files that have already been processed but didn't change don't get reprocessed and don't get saved out. And that allows us to have Nodemon not do that here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here. Now that I changed my Gulp file, I'm going to exit it and rerun it. So give it a sec. Now it's watching. And now I'm going to come up here to garbage, and I'm going to change this and hit Control S. And we still got 2. We got 2 because it triggered the first time. But if we do it again, notice how we only get 1 restarting due to changes. In fact, we should even go into the Gulp file, and for our watch script server, we should actually run script servers first before we start our watch task. And that's very easy to do in Gulp version 4. All I have to do is replace this with gulp.series, and then pass in scripts server as the first one, and then pass in my watch task as the second one. So if you want to take a look at that code real fast, you can pause the video. Again, I made a little mistake there. I didn't mean to do that, but it's okay. All right, so now we can go ahead and delete garbage, and then also delete our compiled garbage because we don't need that. That is the server code. So again, all you need to do is you need to run your watch task, and then you run Nodemon on whichever script you want to run on. And again, I really like showing you guys this sort of thing because it's a great way to experiment with libraries, and it's a way that I often do experiment with JavaScript libraries. In the next video, we'll go ahead and do our client. Our client's going to be a little bit more complicated, but it's not going to be terrible. So we'll see you guys then.